Welcome back to another episode of Demystifying SAP S/4HANA. My name is Faycal, SAP consultant at PwC.
And I'm Torsten, partner at PwC, leading the SAP practice here in Belgium, and at the same time also the European Center of Excellence for SAP Strategy. Hey, Faycal.
Welcome back, Torsten. Great to have you again. So we continue with the third color out of the two we mentioned before, Bluefield. I assume it's the more complex one because it combines elements of the two. It offers flexibility and selectivity, I would say.
Yeah, good. Well summarized. The biggest aspects, indeed, Faycal.
So can you summarize it a bit for the listeners, Torsten?
I will do my best. So first of all, we call it Bluefield, but basically you can, as Faycal already mentioned it a bit, consider it as a hybrid approach. And hybrid, of course, very often says everything and nothing. But I try to explain a bit more in detail what this hybrid approach, how does it actually look like. So first of all, you, as in Greenfield, you have actually a new system. So you leave your old system behind. In Brownfield, you take the system itself that you have and you upgrade that. In Bluefield, you also will have a new system. And how do you build up that system? So basically, you take a copy of your existing system, a full copy, and this full copy serves for two purposes. On the one hand side, you create an empty shell out of it. What does that mean? You basically strip that copy from all the data, and you only leave the configuration and the custom code in that so-called empty shell. And this becomes the basis of the system that you will upgrade to S/4HANA. So you have then basically an empty S/4HANA, which contains all your configuration and all your custom code. Of course, the experts among the listeners know that you have to adapt, of course, the custom code to the needs of S/4HANA. Here, partners like SmartShift can help, but also you can do that with ABAP developers and the tools from SAP. All comes with pros and cons. We can go into a separate in a separate episode in this custom code handling. So this is basically how you get to your empty system. And then you have, of course, also the second challenge. How do you get the data into this S4 system? And here, as Faycal has already teased a bit, we have the possibility to basically select a portion of it and only, for example, import the last 1 or 2 years into that system. So if I explain it like that, under certain circumstances, you will actually have exactly the same as in a brownfield. If you imagine you do everything, and in terms of data migration, you also migrate everything, the result will be the same as in a brownfield, except for that you are working on a new system. Result is exactly the same. So why would you do so-called Bluefield, as our partner SNP calls it? It's a registered trademark, so it can only be used referencing to SNP, but we can also refer to as a hybrid. Well, because this whole journey that I just described also allows you to do some changes. If you have an empty system, empty S4 system, you can change a number of configuration elements, and we will go in a second into that, and then basically do a number of improvements that you cannot do in a brownfield, and that's where it differentiates. So if you, for example, had in the past a number of different controlling areas, and you want to merge all these controlling areas into one and basically have one controlling area where all the company codes are assigned to, then in a brownfield, this is basically impossible. Here in the Bluefield, you can do that at the same time. Another big advantage is when you go in, when you are not yet in a new general ledger, and you go for a brownfield, you have to do this new general ledger conversion in a pre-project. In the Bluefield, it's pretty simple. You can combine that, and even better, this new GL can be done during a financial year. So you don't have to wait with that pre-project until doing that at the end of the financial year, but you can basically integrate it and do that at any moment in time. So a number of big advantages that you have in terms of achieving improvements. So when you get to a point that you say, hey, I'm not happy with 20 to 30% of my existing system, a couple things I really want to change, then I very much advise to look into this hybrid solution. Now, I have to be honest, technically, it's quite complex. It is not something easygoing. We here at PwC, we have specialized ourselves also on this approach and have a number of experiences. And trust me, the first times we did that, it was quite a heavy experience. In the meantime, we are confident enough that we can very well predict and very well plan and manage these kinds of projects.
A lot of lessons learned.
Absolutely, Faisal. We have, and not only once, actually, we do that as a habit in every single project. Indeed, Faisal. We just went through the lessons learned of two of our customers where we did a Bluefield migration. In the meantime, there are only few lessons learned that are added, but in the beginning, it was quite a challenge to do that. And so we have then, of course, the second big advantage that you can also clean and change data during the migration. Also, that you do not have in a brownfield. You do it either in the best case also as a pre-project. So if you are doing a brownfield and you come to the point that you end up with a lot of pre-projects plus a long list of backlog of things that you actually would like to do, but they are not really possible with system upgrade, then look into that Bluefield solution. We would be very happy, of course, anyone who has these questions to explain that more in detail. Also, how to best coordinate the different parties. You have to coordinate the migration expert who migrate the data. You have different teams on the one hand side that take care of the shell creation. Quite often, you also have a situation that you might want to move at the same time to RISE. All that requires the involvement of a number of different parties, and therefore, I think it's good to speak with people who have done that already a couple times. And here we would be very happy, of course, to share our knowledge, our experience to set up your project for success. But I think there are a lot of more questions around Bluefield. Let's give it a go, Faisal.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for an extensive summary of what Bluefield entails. You've mentioned that it is more technical, but what about the other parameters? Like, where is it situated in terms of costs, timeline, business involvement? Where do you see it compared to the other two?
And it's also hybrid, huh? It's actually pretty much exactly in between the brownfield, the system upgrade, and the greenfield of a new installation. So it's definitely more costly than a brownfield. There's absolutely no question, but you also get more for it. So if you can spare additional budget, it is basically well invested in Bluefields, because you might, for example, save on a data migration project. You just leave the data that you do not need behind, and therefore go with a system, start with a system with a much more reduced data footprint. A number of, let's say, heavy conversions like the new GL, new general ledger, but also certain consolidation projects that you might have planned can be integrated into that one. But of course, that means that also the project itself becomes a bit more expensive. The challenge, which you also always asked in the past episodes, is similar to the challenge of a brownfield. You are not doing an upgrade that you are practicing. You are practicing the migration. You're practicing the data migration, actually, a couple of times. But also here, it's a bit the unknown. How many test migrations do you need until you feel ready and safe to go into a go live weekend and do the data migration during a weekend with a certain timing. So here, in terms of challenges, quite similar. Timeline, it's actually only a little more, a little bit longer than brownfields, to be honest. We have seen now one of our Bluefield migrations starting from implementation to go live was 8 months. So we had a number of, I think, 5 months before, also for the design. So it was a bit over a year in this case, with 3 test migrations and 1 go live migration at the end. So also here we are sitting a bit in between.
Don't forget to mention it was very successful.
And it was very successful. Actually, we are looking back to 12 months with 4 go lives, which had close to 0 defects. Some people are happy if the project doesn't fail. In our case, we felt pretty proud of the whole project team, but also of a good collaboration with our customers, that we actually managed, as you mentioned, to have basically no defects at all during go live. So that's pretty cool, because of course, especially when you go to the first month and closing, and everyone is anxiously looking if the numbers fit together and no unexpected problems pop up at this crucial moment, then you have a happy CFO in front of you who says, "Ha! I could close my books on time," and then, of course, you succeeded. And in both cases, now in April, last April, this was the case, and the other projects were already a couple months longer ago. So from that perspective, indeed, quite successful year that we look back to.
You mentioned also RISE in the last episode, regarding the greenfield. How do you see it with the Bluefield approach? Has it more limitations, or?
No, actually no limitations, but it is an additional complexity that comes on top, because first of all is, of course, the question, where do you do your activities? Do you create the shell still outside of RISE, or do you create the shell inside RISE? So do you first move your sub ECC already to RISE and then migrate to S/4HANA? Or do you prepare everything outside on your current environment? So this needs quite some careful planning. Also here, it is, of course, SAP is not prepared or happy to do whatever it takes. So you also need here an experienced team that knows how to work with SAP in order to make a Bluefield happen. This is... well, if I say it's not rocket science, I take back that sentence. It's quite complex, but it's not something that bears a high risk if you have an experienced team which can leverage also on previous approaches that they have tested and worked out. So a number of projects where we did also that all together in one go. Going on S/4HANA, moving at the same time to RISE, doing that with a Bluefield where we selected only a couple data and improved also the system. So all the customers who went through that are at the end very, very happy with the outcome, because in comparison to a brownfield, they managed to add value to this S/4HANA transformation, and at the same time, they did not take the risk of completely re-implementing that in a greenfield. And so from that perspective, in a lot of senses, it's a bit like the best of 2 worlds, if you can say so. Coming with a couple of, let's say, additional resource requests, and of course with the need of quite an expert team.
What I saw happening in recent projects we had multiple data migration, we had the system conversion. How did we actually handle that without any business disruptions? Because that was very hard to tell.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think what is important is that you are challenging yourself already during the test migrations. Huh? So don't be too quickly happy with what you got, but really try to picture yourself that everything has to go perfect, not only during the go live weekend, but also, of course, once you're live in the new system. So from that perspective, I think challenging yourself is probably the best advice in preparing for a good go live, but also be thorough when solving the problems. Huh? Don't try to, let's say, procrastinate solutions, or procrastinate is maybe the wrong word, but to go into a wishful thinking exercise where you say it's gonna be fine during go live. No, nothing's going to be fine at go live. What has not been fine before. So try to aim for perfectionism, if I can say, in the time before. So for everything that you could not predict and that happens really only at go live, you have enough time to focus on these kinds of things instead of things that you could avoid by better preparing. So thorough preparation and a bit of perfectionism is, I think, a good combination to get a successful go live.
And to avoid the pitfalls.
Absolutely.
Change management. We discussed this during the Greenfield migration, where it's heavily needed. But what about Bluefield?
Yeah, change management, of course, depends on the degree of improvements that you want to apply. So we had one customer who strictly said we are only focusing on 12 improvements. And we decide together which 12 that are. And if you have 13, you need to decide which one of the other 12 you are taking out of the scope of the project. And then, of course, if you contain it in that way, very, let's say, tangibly, then you have also a very good idea of how much change these improvements will bring to the people, which end users will be at the end affected, and you can prepare quite well. We have then other customers who just, and I now put that in air quotes, air quotation marks, that just want to merge, for example, controlling areas. This, of course, has not a lot of effect on the organization. Here, a couple of trainings, how to report and how to adapt certain habits when working in the system will be sufficient. So it all depends how much you want to charge your project with certain improvement initiatives.
You've also mentioned a couple of times that the colors can change during the project.
Yeah.
We had some recent Bluefield migrations.
Yeah.
Do you think it was the best choice for the clients we had?
I think in this case, absolutely. In both Bluefields that we just went live with, would not have been possible to do that with a brownfield. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Impossible. Technically impossible. Because again, for the less experienced SAP experienced people, as long as you have data in your system, certain configurations cannot be changed. It's a question of data integrity, as we call it among in the SAP ecosystem. So once certain tables are filled, certain configurations are fixed, because otherwise you would risk the integrity of the system. So from that perspective, everything that the customer wanted to achieve would not have been possible with a brownfield. On the other hand side, with these changes in mind, it would have been completely overkill to go for a greenfield on the one hand side. On the other hand side, you basically would have thrown away the investments in a number of specific functionality that a customer has developed over the past 1 or 2 decades. So it was really, in both cases, the best of the two worlds combined for them. Is that always the right decision? Absolutely not. So we see also a number of customers who just don't need structural changes, specifically of the enterprise structure, who are quite happy with that. And they maybe have a couple of topics where they would say nice to have. And then, for example, in a nice to have scenario, I would not necessarily opt for a Bluefield. Again, as mentioned, you need very experienced people. It comes with a bit of an additional risk. It's all manageable, but this would be probably not justifiable just for the sake of a couple of nice to have changes in a project.
Okay. And looking forward, you mentioned Brownfield is becoming more popular, but I see Bluefield with all this flexibility also more and more the favorite choice.
Yes, indeed. So I think that we will definitely see a growing share of the Bluefield approaches. But on the other hand side, I also see that there are simply limitations in the market of how many Bluefields can you do at the same time. So again, you are coming with the need of, on the one hand side, of the tooling, which you can get, that's not a problem, but the experts that can actually use that. So I would warn customers who do that with a team that does it the first time. And you have not unlimited resources in the market who know how to do that. And hence, I think there's a natural limitation of how much Bluefield can grow, simply due to the fact that also in the next 2 to 3 years, many customers have to move to S4. And there's limited time to learn. Everyone who doesn't know how to do Bluefields today can maybe still learn it over the next 2 years. But again, over the next 2 years, most projects will start. And hence, I think there is this natural limitation. But it remains a very, very interesting option for a number of customers with a certain context.
Good. As last time, one piece of advice that you would like to give, I think you've already mentioned, but maybe it's another one.
Yeah, so I think what is very specific to Bluefield is that you have to focus at the very beginning of the project to build as quickly as possible one team. Now, this sounds a bit esoteric, but it's not, because if you remember, I mentioned there are many parties to be integrated, and this is different than to Brownfield, where you have only a few parties. Basically, in the most simple case, it's the system integrator and the customer. Full stop. We have had in the last Bluefield migrations, we had on the one hand side the customer, of course. We had on the other hand side us as the system integrator. We had then SNP for the Bluefield migration. We had SmartShift for the custom code. We had SAP for the move to RISE. We had a party which took up the change management. So all of a sudden, we were sitting with more parties than you can count in one hand. And all of them need to work seamlessly together, especially when you think of the moments like at the go live, when certain elements really the gears have to really fit together seamlessly in order not to risk anything and not jeopardize anything. And so, long story short there, my biggest advice is focus at the beginning on building one team that trusts each other and that is used to work with each other, where you also separate commercial topics from project operation topics. So all that is, I think, a very important advice for these technically rather complex Bluefield migrations, which also have to fit at the end in one weekend, completely different than, for example, with a greenfield, where you can easily then also move out to one or the other deadline if needed.
Looking back at this project, because you've mentioned there were a lot of partners during this project, do you think is the right approach for a Bluefield migration to have these parties with you?
Yeah, so you can hardly avoid the number of the parties. You might think not to have a partner for the custom code and just let it also do it through the system integrator. But of course, this is a choice based on how much do you need to change your code, for example, what do you expect from it, etc. In terms of quality. Do you just need to do the necessary, or do you really want to make also a performance journey? And so you have limited possibilities to scale down such a Bluefield project, but still, I am absolutely convinced that if you have an experienced team, this can be a beautiful journey at the end, with a beautiful result, where customers then also are simply happy afterwards, and say, hey, this was not just a mandatory or forced upgrade because the old solution doesn't exist anymore. We also used that moment to actually implement things that were long on the backlog, that were for quite some time on the back burner. And so from my perspective, something definitely to consider in these kinds of scenarios.
At the end, that's a very important thing. Yeah? Make our customers happy as well.
Absolutely. It's energizing when you actually bore yourself during go live and everything works as smooth and as predicted as you thought. You don't hear that often, but we have experienced that luckily quite some times now. And so indeed, happy customers make you happy as well. It's nice to be active then in this professional environment, celebrating these kinds of successes.
If only you could see his big smile now. Yeah. I think it's a good way to end this episode.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for
touched again the most important things regarding Bluefield.
Yeah. I think just remains then also to ask our customers or our listeners, sometimes also customers, if they have any questions, really do not hesitate. We are more than happy to share all our experience with you. For us, important that you will be successful and you're not undergoing any failures that can be avoided. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yes. Then I would also ask you to share with whoever might be interested, and see you in the next episode